Danny Two Guns with the Lisa-Committee Foster back with episode 5 in Spanish of the Erie Fitness Lifestyle Podcast.
That would be Cinco.
Cinco. Episode Cinco. Here, once again, with the nerd glasses, because Danny Two Guns, World Traveler, has just returned from the Functional Range Systems Summit, which Functional Range Systems is the umbrella in which our ever favorite Kinstretch falls under.
I feel like you need to tell them what world means. World Traveler means going to Boise.
I mean, it's practically on the other side of the world.
I don't want to insult anyone. Especially people in Boise.
In Boise's defense, delightful city.
Okay.
Like, incredibly pleasant in every way.
Potatoes everywhere.
Yeah. No, it was...
A man of your size likes carbs.
It was completely fair. It was a very beautiful city.
To be fair, you make fun of my mustache, so I should be able to make fun of your
I'm completely on board. And very rarely do we buckle Joe Joseph over in laughter. So I can take it with the best of them. You know, we can both insult each other about our weight.
Potatoes?
Yeah. No potatoes.
No?
Yeah. The home of Russell Brunson and ClickFunnels is in Boise.
I don't know what that is.
Russell Brunson is one of like the most famous, world-renowned internet marketers right now.
Oh, I thought I was showing my ignorance on something that I should have known about.
No.
Okay.
It's just that it's the reason I was in Boise was for Russell Brunson and the 2 Coaching Club meeting.
Why is it called 2
Because
an English teacher needs to know about 2 commas because typically that's
the goal.
Separates something like in a positive or.
The goal of the coaching group is to get people to a 7-figure gross revenue, so it has 2 commas. So $1 million has 2 commas.
He felt like he needed to explain that to me.
Not you, the viewers, and Terrell Owens. Not to insult Terrell Owens'
Thank you.
intelligence.
Or our viewers.
Yeah, fair. So yeah, that's what that's about. And Boise, incredibly delightful.
Okay, well, give me 4 things you liked about Boise, not 5.
How it had enough volume and things to do for like a city, but it had that small town feel without being small-minded.
Okay.
And ClickFunnels was there.
You already said that.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I mean, I did, but not in the context of the 4 things.
Okay. Now number 3.
Oh, I thought I just named 4. We're going to go back to the video. I named 4. They were kind of in scene.
I'm not a math teacher, hence the reason we had to explain 2 commas means 7 figures.
And also, incredibly clean.
I did take AP Calculus. Thank you, Jane Hampshire, who was my AP Calculus teacher.
Ooh, I never got that far. So AP Calculus, but...
I had a tutor.
Boise, also incredibly clean.
Awesome.
Random side note about cities that are not clean, being that I grew up right outside of Manhattan. Do you know the city in which I first saw a bum pooping and wiping his butt with newspaper was?
No, I don't.
Cleveland.
I feel like this is a setup.
Nope, Cleveland. Because you can grow up in Manhattan that people say is dirty and volume filled, and the first time I ever saw a bum wiping his rear with newspaper was right outside Jacobs Field in Cleveland,
Maybe
Ohio.
you just didn't see it when you were growing up because you had childlike glasses on, not these nerd glasses.
I'm pretty sure I was born the size of an adult with, maybe not the intellect, but I don't know if I ever had child glasses.
Okay.
So my weight always said I was an adult, and I'm pretty sure I caught up. Yeah.
My weight always said I was an obese adult. So my BMI was obese adult. Yeah. Pretty sure at birth.
Your BMI obese too. Wait,
yeah,
what?
it's fine. It's fine. It's okay.
But yeah, the functional
2
range system. Well, so I flew out last Tuesday, which is why we weren't completely live. We had pre-filmed the interview with Maggie. Flew to Boise, 2 days at 2 Coaching Club. Thursday night, flew to Oregon.
World Traveler.
Right? Just going to the West Coast. Newberg, Oregon is where the functional range system.
I'm sorry, you went to the West Coast and bring me back any coffee?
Well, in my defense, Boise is potatoes,
I know,
and
but
Newberg is craft beer.
Oregon has good coffee.
Oh, I did
the
not know that.
entire state.
Everything was craft beer in that area. That was their thing.
Craft beer also has coffee in it.
Not always.
No, but some of it does. You'll remember for next time. Speaking of which, your socks.
My socks. Due to it being June and hyphen being a teacher, look away. the best of socks.
The best of socks.
The coffee socks.
We need all the coffee.
We're gonna cheers our coffees for
Cheers.
the coffee socks.
Yes.
Ding.
Clink. Salud. Down the hatch.
But yeah, so the 2 Comma Coaching Club was all business and marketing stuff.
I'm taking these nerd glasses off right now.
Come on.
It's just too much.
The FRS Summit
Oh, I'm gonna put them back
was
on for that.
all
That's a lot of dorks there.
movement, science, nerdy stuff. The first day.
The one nerd who stands above them all. In stature, of course.
In stature, of course.
Yes.
Because I was probably one of the dumbest people in the room, so that's a good room for me. The first presentation of the FRS Summit was just literally 2.5 hours of science just being dropped on your face.
Better than other things being dropped on your face.
Boom.
Had to say it.
Just lob up that,
Interpret as you wish. Mad libs.
Do you know what mesenchyme is?
No.
I
It
didn't
sounds
either until
like
Friday, and I still don't know.
a disease.
Yeah. It's apparently something deep within our cells.
It sounds
and,
like something you would need to cure with a vaccine.
Can't anymore. That's completely fair. No, but it's a deep intracellular science nonsense. So he essentially told
Mesenchyme.
Mesenchyme, mesenchyme.
Is it? I almost.
It's something in the cells. I can't even explain it to you.
I felt like I was going to make an ethnic slur, so I
It's
stopped myself.
completely fair.
It's something you put on a bagel in a Jewish neighborhood or something. I have to edit that out.
It's live.
Okay.
But yeah, essentially, the summation of that first 2.5 hours was how when people say movement is life, that's an evidence-based statement that is backed fully by science.
Movement is life.
And that's a science-supported statement.
You love science.
I love science. Bringing a good transition to the topic of our.
Before we get into that, was there anybody at this, what do you call this?
A summit?
Summit. I don't really like the word summit, because I feel like that's
Congregation of Knowledge Bombs? Is that too long?
Conference? Can we call it a conference?
If you want to.
I prefer conference as an English teacher, because that suggests maybe that we go to rooms and we learn things.
Yeah, that's my only beef, is that it was one room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, at this, whatever you want to call it, was there anybody
Workshop.
there that, okay, workshop, that's fair, that had a shirt on that said, I hate science, but I'm here anyways, or
No.
anybody's face that said, scowl?
No. Everyone there had taken functional range conditioning or Kinstretch and love science.
Love science.
Yeah, it was just a science love fest.
Are you sure that you were just not reading the room improperly, or?
I mean, very rarely am I wrong, and I think you know this. Yeah.
Science.
Science.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't think that was the case.
I'll let you have your ego for a second.
Yeah, just for a second to
Just for a
bring me
minute.
back down
Right.
a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, so back to arthritis.
Back to arthritis. So we talked about how
What was that thing you said? I need to write that down.
when people say
Movement.
movement is life, that's an
With the real
evidence-based
glasses on.
statement.
Movement is life.
Is an evidence-based statement.
Okay. Wait a minute, we have to go over this real quick. The fact that my note paper is blank. Daniel? Stop,
So
stop,
is mine.
show the real note paper. Movement.
It does have some notes. As a master instructor of the CRS certification, I think I need notes, and I've admitted you were right.
I won.
You won.
I'm going to need you to say that a little bit louder.
You won.
Okay. Now, you did tell me a minute ago that that you didn't lose. It's just that I won.
It's true,
Okay.
because we don't necessarily need a loser, but you certainly won, even though I didn't lose.
That's fine. That's fine. And I'm going to also write on here, I won, period.
And that's fair.
Yeah. And
That's
then
fair.
today is 6/5. Oh, wait. Yeah. 6/5/18.
I'm a little offended you didn't ask what the CRS certification was that I'm a master instructor in.
I think that's because I'm just not into acronyms today.
Oh,
Because I just
we
figured
can't have a fitness podcast if you're not into acronyms.
Because on the gym floor, it's just nothing but acronyms on my program.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
make up what I want them to say.
You might like the CRS certification.
Okay.
It's the can't remember shit.
Oh.
And I'm a master instructor.
Okay.
Right?
Is that real?
No.
Or is that your own little joke?
I don't know if it was Jeff or I, or the combination thereof.
Bless your heart.
But yeah, that's
all right, I like it.
So I need the notes, and I'm embracing it because
CRS,
it leads for a better podcast.
I'll have to write that down too.
Oh yeah.
Because it's end of the school year,
You'll be a
and
master
hyphen
instructor in training.
is bad with remembering. Can't remember. I can't even spell. Okay, go ahead.
So one of the bigger issues in the medical field is that osteoarthritis is something that they can't necessarily figure out.
Why?
But because, and there's probably evidence to this, but we'll call it opinion, that it's not a medical issue, right? It's a movement issue.
Okay.
Because there is evidence to support that arthritis is due to lack of movement, and moving alleviates, I don't want to say cures, but helps arthritis. And the people who move and move well and moved often don't necessarily have arthritis. So they go looking for all these medical solutions to something that is a movement issue, and they can't figure it out when there's evidence to show that moving, in particular cars, aka controlled articular rotations, is an evidence-based thing to support the cure for arthritis.
That's what I do when I don't like something. I just hiss at it.
But for someone who has battled with arthritis since birth, I imagine a cure for arthritis would be something.
If my parents would have just made me do hip cars as a child,
right?
I could have solved all of these problems.
Womb hip cars?
Yes.
Like, that's a thing.
I should have been in the womb doing shoulder cars. I won't do them here for fear that someone on this cast is, judging them. Or you're judging them.
But cars are a learning process, so there's
Yeah,
really no right or wrong per se. But
I do have all the arthritis.
all the arthritis.
And for many years I did or did not move, just depending on how Jabba the Hutt status I was.
Is there a level of statuses?
I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It's just a noise I make, depending on how fat I was.
The noise of lack of movement?
Yeah.
I can see that.
Like the one, I just remember this one school picture I took. I wish I had it. Maybe I'll take a picture of it and send it to Joe Joseph so he can insert it into the finished version.
Yes.
But it's the only school picture as a teacher that I did not approve of, because all of my school pictures have been on point. And all it takes is one click.
Right.
Because I'm that photogenic. Even as a large person, I'm just so photogenic. So I always tell the people who take my picture at school, like, raise up the camera. I know this is a free
Angles,
picture for me.
yep,
It's all about angles. And they get annoyed. I don't care. I'm just sending them my Christmas cards. People are going to get them as gifts. It's important. Well, this one picture came back. I looked like I had Bell's palsy, which is facial paralysis.
Yep.
And I looked like Jabba the Hutt with Bell's palsy. And I am not making fun of Bell's palsy. My dad had it, so I knew exactly what it was. It was the worst school picture I ever had, and at that moment I thought, I've got to do something with my life.
We're going to need to splice that into this.
Oh, it's so bad. So that's when the noise came with it. And I'm sure I had a lot of arthritis at that point.
And I mean, that makes complete sense as per science.
That picture is science, written all over it.
So a controlled articular rotation, or a CAR, is essentially taking a joint through its full and complete pain-free range of motion.
Pain-free.
Pain-free.
Mm-hmm.
We know, the difference between pain and discomfort and training and
Could you
whatnot.
give me an explanation of pain-free and discomfort?
Not on a live podcast.
Okay, I think. Oh, never mind. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
wait, we're gonna go. I don't know if we're going on a rabbit hole, but cars essentially, because the closest muscle stuff to a joint is called the capsule, and training the capsule is the foundation for everything moving, because it's the closest thing to the joint. So, Danny Two Guns back in action for our Kinstretch Functional Range Summits podcast. Hyphen and I had a little bit of technical difficulties. We lost the second half and then didn't necessarily have time to film the other half. So I'm just going to solo the last half with a little bit of cars knowledge bombs and things we touched on or things I wanted to touch on. So we talked about cars and the major tenet of cars being that they make you better at being a human, whatever being a human means to you. This goes for, cars and Kinstretch make you better at yoga if yoga is what you so desire to do, makes you better at CrossFit if CrossFit is what you so desire to do, makes you better at the boot camp beatdown across the street if that's what you so desire to do. It literally translates to every other movement and life skill we have, and we can't necessarily say that about anything else. And that's one of the most powerful pieces of it. Now, an interesting thing, as we've talked about cars, and a message I got on the Kinstretch page from somebody inquiring about our Kinstretch program was, she said, I did a little more research and I really wanted to have something that was a little bit more than a supplement. So I'm going to go back to doing yoga. And that surprised me because I was like, what gave you that impression? And she said that she had seen Dr. Andrea Spina talking about how cars and Kinstretch make you better at whatever you want to do by fixing all of those things or helping all of those things. And she took it as that it wasn't necessarily something that you do, where in reality it's everything you do, because it translates to everything. The better we move at our most root foundation, the better we are at all of our tasks that we have. And it isn't necessarily a supplement. It could solely be a movement practice like yoga, like CrossFit, and it could be what people do because there's so many ways to challenge it. But it could also be the thing that helps a person stay safe and healthy for whatever their desired movement practice is, whether it's yoga or big in athletes where they have to train for their sport, but getting them moving well at the most root foundation serves their sport as best possible. And the last thing I kind of wanted to touch on in this was going through the 6 different variations of cars we have. In this specific example, I'm going to use glenohumeral or shoulder cars as the main one, and we'll go through some examples where we'll intersperse some videos into this. But the first one is what we call our global cars or our morning cars, where we're taking a joint through its full range of motion as seen in the video that follows. So you just saw the global car that takes the joint through its full and complete range of motion. We do those all the time as a way to train the joint, but we can also take some measures and practices to make us better and more efficient at doing those cars. One of the variations are capsule cars. What those are is it looks at the most root foundation of the root foundation in that movement. So the example of a shoulder where LD is going through the full range of motion, in the next one you'll see him going through an axial rotation or an internal rotation of the shoulder that works it at its even more of its root level, and that's what's going to follow. From capsule cars, we can go into other variations of cars that either assist the movement or give us a block or an assistance to help us perform the movement better. So something like that could be a stick or a block holding you in position to make you do the range of motion a little more purely, or take away your compensation, something that looks like the following. Another variation of that second tier is what we call positional joint isolations, where you take out a segment of the joint that's either above or below the area you want to work, and then go through the range of motion without that compensation. Something that looks like the following. Then after those two levels, after the capsule cars, we have two further levels that go into a more of a training stimulus for the controlled articular rotation. One of them is to give us as much ability to create force and as much tension as we can through the body so that we can't compensate at all. And that's something that looks like the following. From there, after we've irradiated and created all the tension we can add some kind of external load to even further challenge the rotation or the movement, something that looks like this. And those are generally the 6 types of CARS variations we can work with. And we just showed you the shoulder or the glenohumeral variations. And even within that shoulder, we have dozens upon dozens of more variations, as well as hips, knees, ankles, thoracic spine, cervical spine, wrists, elbows. Every joint we have different variations, because the better we move at all our joints, the better our joints can work together, and the better they work together, the more we can train them, whether our goals are fat loss, performance, move better, feel better, get better at a task, whether it's athletics, yoga, or, hey, I just want to not hurt. That's what we have CARS for. If you have any questions, be sure to hit us up in the comments, and we look forward to hearing from you.